There's a rumor going around this week, the kind that would normally set an entire fan base ablaze, suggesting Harry has been texting someone else. And honestly, the genuinely surprising part in all of this isn't the rumor itself. It's how few people, watching from the outside, actually seem shocked by the idea at all.
They really hate each other now, and they cannot hide it anymore.
I want to be upfront about something before we go any further. There's no real evidence behind this specific claim, and I'm not going to spend this video chasing a name or pointing fingers at anyone based on a single party photo. That's not what tonight is actually about. What's genuinely interesting isn't whether the rumor is true. It's the reaction to it, and what that reaction tells you about a full year of accumulated signals that a lot of people had already quietly clocked long before any text messages entered the conversation.
Was the villain.
How was she dangerous?
Because of the need for her to rehabilitate her.
So let's actually walk through that entire year properly, and in order, because I think it explains the current reaction considerably better than any single unverified rumor ever could on its own merits. Before Meghan, there was Chelsea Davy, the one relationship where, by most accounts, Harry genuinely seemed happy rather than just performing happiness for cameras. She grew up in Zimbabwe, reportedly cared very little about palace protocol or formal royal life, and the two of them were together, on and off, for close to 7 years. Here's what makes that relationship relevant to this current story. Harry himself has spoken about it under oath in court, not once, but twice. During his privacy case testimony, he didn't lead with legal principle or abstract argument about press conduct.
He was madly in love. The veil is now lifting.
He led with her specifically, describing what he characterized as the press effectively poisoning the one relationship that had genuinely made him happy. He described the paranoia that came with it, the sense of being constantly watched, a tracking device that reportedly turned up on her car, private disagreements that ended up in newspapers, and a particularly cruel headline that celebrated their eventual breakup like a sporting win. He's also said that same experience left him suspicious of people in his own social circle more broadly. During this year's Daily Mail case specifically, he used the word nightmare to describe what happened to that relationship. His word, not a paraphrase. And in his own memoir, he went even further, essentially acknowledging that he couldn't bring himself to pull Chelsea fully into that life, out of fear the press would relentlessly pursue her, and that if he genuinely had the choice, he might not have wanted that royal life himself either.
These are the two photos of the women that people are speculating that could be the woman for Harry.
There's something worth pausing.
Okay, so quick game before we start. I'm going to describe a royal story to you, and you tell me which year it's from. A British aristocrat with a colourful personal history goes on a podcast, drops a vague hint about a woman Harry supposedly knows, refuses to actually name her, strongly implies an affair while insisting she's not saying it's an affair, and somewhere in the same breath predicts Meghan's walking away with a settlement in the 9 figures. Take your time. Is it 2023? Is it 2025? Is it this week? Honestly, does it even matter? Because it's basically always this week on some channel from the same handful of people, and at this point we could set our calendars by it. Welcome back to Royal Truth Desk, the channel where we take these recurring royal rumour cycles and actually put them under a light before letting them scare us. Tonight we're diving into the latest version of this particular rerun, the Lady Colin Campbell name-drop story. And we're going to walk through exactly what she claims, why this specific claim is being framed as heavier than a typical tabloid rumour, and most importantly, whether any of the evidence being stacked on top of it actually holds up. Spoiler, we've got thoughts. If you like it when we actually do the homework instead of just repeating the scariest headline, subscribe now. Because tonight's breakdown has a lot of moving parts, and we are not skipping a single one of them. So here's the actual claim making the rounds. Lady Colin Campbell, a name you have absolutely heard before if you've spent any time at all in this corner of YouTube, went on camera and referenced someone Harry has reportedly known since long before Meghan came into the picture. someone she implies still understands him better than nearly anyone currently around him. Notice what's happening in that sentence, by the way, because it's doing a lot of very deliberate work without actually committing to anything. No name given, no direct accusation of an affair, just enough insinuation to let your imagination fill in the rest. It's less a claim and more of a Rorschach test with a British accent. And look, we should say up front, this isn't Lady C's first trip to this particular well. Not even close. Over the past several years, she has claimed, at various points, that Harry quietly called in divorce lawyers months in advance, that Buckingham Palace was secretly bracing for a Sussex split, that Meghan was scheming to become the most famous person on earth long before Megxit. And genuinely we wish we were exaggerating, that Harry has feelings for someone his own age, while Meghan supposedly found out by going through his phone. Most recently, she's also tied unnamed U.S. government-linked sources to claims that Lilibet was actually born via surrogate and secretly flown into California. A theory that, for the record, runs directly into the small, inconvenient detail of officially filed birth certificates listing Meghan as the mother for both of her children, in London for Archie and in Santa Barbara for Lilibet. So, you know, just a small, easily checkable fact getting in the way of a very dramatic theory. That track record matters enormously here, because when you're evaluating whether a new claim from someone deserves serious weight, their history of accuracy is not some irrelevant detail you can set aside out of politeness. It's basically the whole ball game. If a source has a multi-year pattern of confidently predicting divorces that never happened, surrogacies that official documents directly contradict, and secret palace panic that somehow never actually surfaces anywhere else, then the responsible move isn't to treat their next claim as a bombshell. It's to treat it exactly the way you'd treat a weather forecaster who's called for snow in July 4 years running. Interesting that they keep trying. Not exactly a reason to grab your coat. Now, let's actually get into the specific evidence being stacked up around this latest claim, because on paper it sounds a lot more substantial than it actually is once you look at each piece individually instead of letting them blur together. First, there's the pattern of Harry's solo public appearances, treated here as suspicious on its own. Except famous married people, including royals, attend separate solo engagements constantly for entirely mundane reasons. Schedules, causes tied to one partner specifically, childcare logistics, geography. On its own, a solo appearance is about as damning as someone going to the grocery store without their spouse. Then there's the claim about reported separate schedules, which again sounds ominous, framed as a symptom of marital collapse, but functions as a completely normal description of two working adults with independent careers, foundations, and business interests. And then there's the specific detail getting a lot of play, an alleged 88-day stretch without a single photograph of the two of them together. Here's the thing about that one. The absence of paparazzi photos of two people who have spent years actively trying to reduce unauthorized paparazzi photos of themselves is not exactly the smoking gun it's being presented as. If anything, fewer unsanctioned photos of a couple that has sued outlets over unauthorized images and deliberately built a quieter, more private life in Montecito is closer to expected behavior than evidence of anything falling apart. Next up, the Vanity Fair reference to some kind of post-divorce manuscript report that has never been retracted. This phrase gets used a lot in this genre of content, and it's worth pausing on why, because never retracted sounds a lot more significant than it actually is. Outlets retract stories when they're forced to, through legal pressure, direct on-record correction, or overwhelming public proof of falsehood. Speculative pieces about a celebrity couple's future that simply never happen typically don't get retracted at all. They just quietly age out of relevance and get replaced by the next speculative piece. The absence of a retraction isn't confirmation of accuracy. It's just what unfalsifiable speculation looks like 6 months later, sitting untouched because nobody bothered to go back and clean it up. And then there's maybe the most theatrical piece of the whole puzzle, bringing in a Los Angeles family law specialist to explain how a divorce of this specific complexity would practically play out. Think about what's actually being asked of that expert for a second. They're not being asked, is there a divorce happening? They're being asked to explain the mechanics of a legal process that, as far as any public record shows, hasn't been filed, announced, or confirmed by literally anyone involved. That's not analysis. That's speculative world-building dressed up in a blazer, using a real professional's credibility to make an entirely hypothetical scenario feel procedurally inevitable. Put all of those pieces together, and here's what you actually get. Several individually explainable mundane details wrapped around one vague, unnamed person insinuation, reinforced by a magazine piece that was never confirmed accurate in the first place, topped off with a legal expert answering a question that assumes a conclusion nobody has actually reached yet. That's not a rumour and something underneath it that's very different, the way this narrative wants to frame it. That's a rumour wearing a very well-tailored disguise made entirely out of other smaller rumours. And here's the part that we think deserves real pushback, beyond just poking holes in the individual pieces. This exact playbook, vague insinuation, pattern stacking of mundane facts, an unretracted old article, a professional brought in to discuss hypothetical mechanics, has been run on this couple over and over and over again for years now by some of the same recurring voices, and it has never actually produced a confirmed divorce, a confirmed affair, or a confirmed anything. At some point, and we think that point has been reached a long time ago, the responsible conclusion isn't, there must be something to this eventually. It's this specific formula generates engagement regardless of whether it's ever been right before. And audiences deserve to know that pattern exists before they take the next installment of it seriously. None of this means Harry and Meghan's marriage is beyond scrutiny or immune to genuine reporting. No couple, royal or otherwise, gets a free pass from real journalism just because we like them. But there's an enormous difference between actual reporting and this specific genre of insinuation plus inference stacking, and we think it's worth naming that difference clearly instead of pretending every claim dressed up with a legal expert and a magazine citation deserves equal weight with something that's actually been confirmed. So here's what we want to know from you tonight. Have you noticed this exact pattern repeating from the same handful of sources, or do you think there's genuinely something new here worth taking seriously this time around? Drop your honest, unfiltered take in the comments. We mean it. We want the real disagreements down there, not just people agreeing with us for the sake of it. Before we let you go, if you appreciated us actually breaking down the mechanics of how a rumour like this gets built, instead of just repeating it back to you with dramatic music underneath, do us a solid and subscribe to Royal Truth Desk if you haven't already, and flip on notifications, because we guarantee you this exact story format is coming back around again. It always does. If you're already subscribed, drop a like, send this to whoever keeps sending you the Lady C Exposes video titles. And let us know in the comments which recurring royal rumour you want us to put under the microscope next. And one last thing before we sign off. If where there's smoke, there's fire were actually true every single time someone said it about this couple, they'd have been divorced roughly 9 separate times by now. And somehow they're still very much married, still very much co-parenting, and still very much making public appearances together whenever it actually matters. Stay sharp, stay skeptical of the sources doing the accusing and not just the people being accused, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks so much for watching Royal Truth Desk.